Welcome to A Better Divorce podcast, where we have conversations about the emotional, financial, and legal issues that are on your mind or should be on your radar if your goal is to keep your divorce out of court. I'm collaborative divorce attorney and mediator Andrea Vacca, and I know that how you divorce matters to your long-term well-being. That's why it's my mission to help you have a better divorce with as little acrimony as possible, so that you can create the best life possible on the other side of your marriage. Hello, I'm your host, Andrea Vacca, and I'm really excited to welcome Dr. Risa Ryger to the podcast today. Risa is a clinical psychologist, international speaker, author, and the creator of the trademark Disruptive Self-Ownership. She holds a master in science, a master of philosophy, and a doctorate in clinical psychology, all from Columbia University. And she guides and supports parents and families of all ages and stages before, during, and after divorce. And in addition to all of that, she is an expert in change, which is why I'm so excited, Risa, to welcome you to A Better Divorce podcast today.
Andrea, thank you so much. And I'm very happy to be here, and I'm excited for us to have our conversation and really be able to help your community and your audience navigate these new waters.
There are so many new waters that people are contemplating as they're considering divorce, in the middle of the process, after it's over. And, to have an expert, someone who's has expertise in change is really a real benefit to have you here today. So, I guess my first question is what challenges do you most often find yourself helping your divorcing clients dealing with when it comes to change? What are they dealing? What are they asking you to help with?
It's a complicated process. And so to begin with, that the change isn't one change. And so at every spot that there are different changes that happens. And it's very important to remember that no one gets married or they come together in a partnership with the idea of breaking it up. And so when the time comes and people have all their different reasons, they may not disagree. And so if you're in the process of divorcing and you're hoping that there will be agreement and seeing things the same way, that will be a spot of being stuck, and that change means going forward, and how we go about doing that and the mindset of change is very important, and how we can help ourselves be poised and be ready best possible to be able to meet the change and challenges in front of us.
So, there could be small changes that are happening that might be easier to process. Super large, huge changes, like I'm
Mhm.
not going to see my kids every day anymore. To I get a small change could be I get the bathroom to myself. That's great. so,
Yes.
so like there are some people might have problems dealing with even the simpler changes. So, why is it? Why is change so hard? And
Mhm.
about what is it about change?
So there are a couple of components about change. First of all, let's talk about neuroplasticity, which is really the good news about change, which is that our brains are built for change. We're built for change, and change is possible throughout the life cycle. So that's step number one. At the same time, our brains are pattern machines. And so we do what we do because we've done what we've done. Our brains are looking for closure. And so what happens is that we're in a situation, our brains go, well, what do I do in this situation? It's like, oh, yes, this is what happens. And during divorce, there is a huge shift in that. And so being able to be in that moment and understand, wait a minute, I can't expect what used to happen. That's not going to be happening anymore. And that's a shift for our brains to get used to. But at the same time, because of neuroplasticity, we give our brains an opportunity to grow and make the new pathways so that we're able to anticipate in a different kind of way.
So, if we like things to be predictable we react well to when things are just going along. And if I'm hearing you correctly, our brains are ready and willing and able to change and to make those new pathways. So it's more about that phrase that I hear myself saying a lot, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? So it's kind of like that.
Andrea, I was just writing about this today,
Really?
actually. Yes. And that there's this idea that we get comfortable about being uncomfortable. And that sounds really, really great. Wonderful. However, what is involved in that is more complicated than just do it. And we have to really be in touch with one component is our own humanity, because we're going to have feelings about it, but that also we have to give ourselves, our bodies, our brains, our emotions, the thinking part of ourselves, the feeling part of ourselves, and the physiological part of ourselves the opportunity to make the transitions. And that's what's involved. So that when we are, for example, part of neuroplasticity, part of making change is when we bring awareness. And so when we have this anticipation that this is what's supposed to happen next, and we can become aware and bring the power of our awareness to that and say, wait a minute, not so fast. And so that you can be more ready. And this takes practice, it's not a one off. You can be more ready for doing something differently and doing what's necessary and required in the situation at the moment, and not how it used to be, not how it always was. And that's one of the profound changes of divorce, because in some respects, everything changes. And it's not going to be what it was. And that's a hard piece to take into account. Even, by the way, even if you know and believe from the bottom of your heart that divorce is really the step that needs to be taken,
Right.
it still is profoundly changing on all levels. Even if you're feeling it different, you're up to par with it. Oftentimes, some of the people around you are not.
Not. And that can affect you too. So there's so much about this. So first of all, let's just be clear that when you're divorcing,
Mhm.
everything is changing. Your relationship, of course, with your spouse, perhaps your relationship with your children, or that's when you'll be with them, the friends that you will have in your life, your extended family relationships will change. Your relationship with yourself, your ego, your how you see yourself in the world, how you spend your time, the status that you write down. Are you married, divorced, separate? I mean, so much. Your money changes everything. It's systemic, multi-systemic, right? I mean, everything is changing. So for somebody considering divorce and wanting the divorce, how do you is there a way to shore yourself up for the onslaught of change? Is there some way to be prepared and knowing that you're not experiencing it yet, but these things will happen? Is there any advice that you give to people that way?
Absolutely. And the first thing is that you're not going to know what's going to happen.
Okay.
And you're not going to know exactly what to anticipate. And so when we can prepare ourselves, when your clients can prepare themselves in that way, that there's a level of unpredictability that can happen across the board. And the unpredictability not only can and will happen, but it will often happen from people, places, and situations that you couldn't have imagined that
Mm.
it will happen. Right. You may think, well, my former in-laws, almost former in-laws are going to be this, that, or the other. And that may not happen. It may happen some other place and with other people in other situations. So that if you can start to talk to yourselves, because We need, people think it's the other way, but actually, we need to teach our brain what it needs to know. We need to teach our brain. And so when we can start teaching ourselves to be ready for things to be unpredictable,
Right.
that we may not know what's going to happen, and that we're in a space of uncertainty because with change comes disruption. That's what happens. And divorce is one of the most, if not the most, disruptive experiences, which doesn't mean that it shouldn't happen, but that we need to really be clear about the level of disruption that's going to happen. And when we can do that, and we're good, and also have people can have all kinds of feelings about it. Clients going through divorce, entering into divorce, thinking about divorce are going to have all sorts of feelings about it. The important piece is not to negate or avoid, but to be able to read yourself and to develop a level of what I call self literacy so that you can read what's going on inside of you. And that's enormously helpful to be able to check in and see where you are with you at a point in time.
Mm. So you might go into something thinking, if I can deal with this change, then something might come up like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know I would feel this way. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Give yourself some kindness, perhaps. Be okay with the feelings that are coming up around this, and let yourself move through it. I assume, and
Yes, and
adapt.
that yes, and not that doing, not that having the feeling is going to set you back, but being able to identify what you're feeling is empowering. That's very empowering to know where you are, because once you have the clarity of knowing where you are. And I want to add in a very important addendum to this, which is once you have the clarity of knowing where you are, then it gives you more clarity about what it is that you're dealing with and what your options are about how you want to respond. So you don't have to be in a reactive, reflexive, rather than a responsive mode.
Yeah, instead of reactive. I like that.
Yes.
That idea of not being with your children, right? Whether you wanted the divorce or not, and you have children, that somebody who wants the divorce might realize they're not going to be with their children every night anymore. Maybe they feel that 50-50 parenting plan would be best for their children, but their heart is breaking thinking they won't be with their children. Um, and I do hear myself talking with them about, and encouraging them to talk to their therapist or their coach about what could they be doing with that time? How can they spend that time? What else can they fill it with? Is there anything they've been wanting to do? So, like, looking at this ability, this change that's happening, and then what else can come in, and what else can you change to kind of take the hurt out of it? Is that something that you would work on with somebody on?
Well, as a human being, you're a human being.
I am.
And whatever these whatever these feelings are, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to be sad. It's not filling in a gap that you're not going to have feelings about, but that we can have multiple feelings at simultaneously, and being able to be aware of it, so that, for example, no, there is nothing that's going to not have you feel like your kids are with you when your kids are not with you. But you can also ask yourself, well, I do have this time and I have options. So there's a clarity about where you may not have control and where you can have control and really have agency and have impact for yourself. Have impact for yourself. You're using your time well for yourself and getting satisfaction. You're feeling more satisfied, more interested, more engaged in something. It doesn't mean, and this is where we have to be like a little bit specific and careful about guilt, that if you're off and you're doing something that's really wonderful and important for you, and it's nourishing for you, that it doesn't mean that you don't miss your kids. And so that, in fact, it's really quite the opposite. That when you are nourishing and giving to yourself and really finding out where your passions are and what's, helping you feel your own internal aliveness, that will absolutely, without a doubt, be helpful for your children.
They will see when they come home to
They
you
will see it. They
that
will see it. And because there's so much, it's not just our words. And what I tell the clients that I work with, the parents who are really wanting to do what's best. They may see it very differently, but they want to. Is that it's what not only what we say, but our children become very much are they're tremendously aware of us. And so what I talk about and explain to them is that, we're all bilingual. Every single one of us is bilingual. And our first language, meaning that our first language is the language of the body. It's all of the nonverbal communication. And so when you walk into the house, and sometimes, there's one eyebrow that goes up. You haven't said anything, but there's the one eyebrow that goes up. And then the kids will say, well, what's wrong? What happened? And they're such a read because, the early part of their lives has been all about looking into your face. And so that is embedded. So when you are in a better space in you, when you're able to reset yourself, when you're able to internally recalibrate, uh, that is absolutely helpful because there's an integrated communication that you're giving to your children, to the people around you, which is that your words are matching your internal state, right? And that's showing in every way possible, in your tone of voice, in your body language, in the way that your eye contact, all of those components of the nuance of communication. When that's lining up, that is a powerful communication that really speaks authenticity. And our kids are the lie detectors of that. They're the Geiger counters of that. And they're like bing, 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 bing. And so when you're in that space and you are more solid in yourself, that is a tremendous communication to your children that they can offload onto you, and that they're not going to be overwhelming you, so that when they have their hurts or their disappointments or their worries, that they know that you're the person that they can go to, not just from what you say, but through the entirety of your being.
right. And they're dealing with change too. So if they see you handling the fact that they're leaving or that you're all moving or that you're taking different types of vacations now or whatever the change is, how they're seeing you react to it will help them, I would imagine, know that it's okay and that everything's safe and we're safe, we're okay. And so that's am I correct there? And what else can parents be doing to help their children deal with the changes that are coming up around divorce? Anticipated or actually realized changes?
One important component, and this is going to sound again counterintuitive, one important component is that you can't know everything. But being clear about what you don't know and what you're uncertain about is crucial. And that I don't know isn't a place of confusion or a place of uncertainty, that it's a place of clarity. That when you can say, I don't know. I
Mhm.
need to think about this. I need to find out more. That your family and the people around you know that it's not a pass off, but that that there are things that you're not going to know. So when you over, we talk about, setting over expectations, right? And setting expectations that are not within the realm of what you can really deliver. That when we're clear about, I don't know that yet. Let me think about that. Let me find out more. I'm not sure. That that's important because it speaks to a seriousness
Mm.
and a reliability. And so that when you do come back with an answer, and even if that answer is, I have a little bit about that, and this is what I can share with you, or that, yes, this is what I found out and what I know, there's more, that when there's clarity, clarity helps build security, authenticity, and the person, and even if your kids don't like it, that doesn't mean they're going to like it. Uh, don't expect, I'm not sure about that. And don't expect, well, that's okay, dad. That's okay, mom. It's like, no, they may not like it, but still speaking with that truthfulness. We don't share everything with our kids, obviously, because they're in different developmental stages. There are things that are parent decisions and parent areas, and there are areas that are children's decisions, like, do you want tuna or do you want turkey for lunch? That's child areas. But as parents, we also make decisions about perspective and where our children are developmentally at that point in time. So there's a very big difference between oversharing, because they're not on your level. They can't be, because they can't have the perspective that you have.
Right.
And oversharing and under, and giving them no information, or giving it, oh, this will be fine.
Right. Blowing it off and, dismissing it.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, so
So
I have clients
yes.
that'll say, tell me like, our kids are starting to ask, "Are you getting divorced?" And we're not ready to say that. We know we're getting divorced, but we're not ready. We don't have everything lined up yet. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know who's moving. We don't know when this is happening. And, having those conversations, like you don't, they know something's changing. They
Right.
sense it, they feel it, they see it. And that's always a really hard time. And that encourages, I think, clients or parents to start really knowing that they have to make these decisions so that they can tell their children and have some answers, even if they're not perfect answers or final answers, so that the kids can deal with the changes and be
Yes.
prepared for them.
Well, but also children cannot, in the parents that I've worked with, just with children of all different ages. And so children are in their own developmental stages, parents are in their own developmental stages, that you can't tell them everything at once. And you're not going to have that all figured out. And you don't have to have that all figured out. So just the fact that we're getting, we are, we've come to a decision that this relationship just isn't viable. Of course, you won't use that word, but we need to end this relationship in this way. Because you can be married, you can be not married, you can be in partnership, you can be in non-partnership. Parenting is forever, forever, regardless, regardless of how old your children are. And my kids are older, but parenting is forever. And so when you just tell your children that we're not going to stay together, that in and of itself is huge. And they don't need to know at that moment in time where they're going to be living, who's moving out, when that's going to happen, what's going to happen over summer vacation. That more isn't better.
So be okay as long as both of you are telling the children at the same time. It's not just one parent sharing this. So ideally, both parents should be talking about this
Ideally,
upcoming change that mom and dad are, or mom and mom, dad and dad are ending our relationship, and we're working on
Yes.
it. We're gonna do what's best for the whole family, and we're working hard to come to some decisions. And as soon as we know more, we'll tell you what's going on, and or something to that effect.
And even if the children say to you, what's best for the whole family is for you to stay together, right?
Yeah,
So, watch what you say and how you say it, because they may not feel that it's best for them.
yeah, right.
They may feel, well, that you're making this decision and that you can say things like, we're working that out. We're really thinking about this. This is what we know, this is what we know. And that you don't have to have all the answers, and you don't have to approximate this. And that even if the children are asking this all at once, that doesn't mean that it all has to be answered right then and there. In
I
a
was
loving way, in a
right.
loving way, in a kind way, not in a dismissive way, but that we're taking this very seriously, and we're figuring these parts out.
And this applies to young children, older children, and it's as we're talking, I'm remembering when and I was one of those children that saw how unhappy my parents were, and from the time I was 13, would say to my mother, "Why don't you just get divorced?" I thought it was so easy. Hence, I'm a divorce
Right.
lawyer now. Who knew? But I was like, "You're so unhappy, just get divorced." We didn't even know people divorced. It was so weird that I would say that. But finally, around 21, she called me. I was, not living at home, and she called and said, "Mom and Dad, I'm leaving your dad. We're getting divorced." And I was shocked, and my first reaction was, "Our family will never be the same." Like, that change
That's true.
was the
That's
biggest and
true.
she was shocked. She's like, "You've been telling me to do this for 9 years." Um, but yeah, that even as an adult child, your life will never be the same if your parents divorce. So helping
Yes.
your children, regardless of what age, deal with this change is very, very important. And getting help, therapy, coaching, whatever it is that will help
I've
you.
had yeah, I've had parents that I've worked with who we start before the divorce. Sometimes it's during, and sometimes it's afterwards, because the effects, once the divorce is finalized, your life still isn't finalized, and neither are the lives of your children. And then what also happens is that, and I was just having a conversation last night, there's families where someone's getting remarried and the other person isn't. It is a continual process. Life is a continual process in and of itself, right? But with the divorce, it's a continual process, and there are different stages and changes that happen. And so it's so important to know when you need an opinion. You're doing your best to figure everything out, and you're really trying best, and you may know a lot, but we can only know as much as we know within our own perspectives. And so sometimes, and it's not a space of, oh my gosh, I don't know this, I should know this, these are my kids, I should know what's best for them. But sometimes it's so helpful. Gets everybody off the hook to get some information, get some input, get some perspective that's different than your own.
Yeah.
And that's so crucial. It can save everyone more agony, more pain. It can be less disruptive within this level of disruption. What can be done? There's going to be bumps. There's going to be bumps. There's going to be, all sorts of difficulties. But within the realm of, well, what can we do to help make smoothen the areas that we can, which is very crucial. You can only do as much as you can think of doing. Right?
We're kind of
And
trapped by our own who we
well,
are. So getting that other
yeah,
perspective.
it can be enormously helpful, even to run by. I was thinking about this, but I'm just not sure. Is there a better way of doing this? Is there a different way of doing this? And sometimes just running it by someone who's only there for there for your family and helping navigate this particular, time can be just so helpful, can help you feel better in your decisions, help you anticipate what some of the fallout could be, not necessarily what it will be. And so many parents, just say, I didn't think of that, or I didn't think of it that way, or I didn't think of, you know, kind of talking about it in that kind of way. And these are parents who are in a real, what I would call, if we go back down to mindset, that they're in a growth mindset. And they're in the mindset of, I can only know as much as I can know. Happens to everyone. And so, what else can I do to help move this along? And so, when you think about, well, what is my goal here? What am I trying to achieve here? And you try to understand your feelings, identify and respect your feelings, and at the same time, say, well, what do we want to accomplish in this moment?
To
Right?
deal with this change.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Because we can't do it all.
Right,
You cannot do it all. It is not possible.
right.
And
Yeah,
so when you can navigate that next moment, that is enormously helpful because life is all about the moments.
and moving through them, dealing with them, moving through them, experiencing more of them, and learning from where you've been. That's life. If you're not moving
It
forward, you know. So the
Mhm.
you'll get past if you have that paralysis by analysis idea. If that happens to you, the change is going to bring up a lot of that. You get a lot of people get paralyzed and don't make any decisions. So that's a whole. I mean, that's a whole other area. But
Yes.
getting help from
It's
someone like you, a
yes.
therapist, someone who really understands what's happening here and can help you as a sounding
Mhm.
board and look at different options and play it out.
There are things that happen, well, what if you're dating someone, what's happening with your child? What if the other parent isn't? What if the other parent is, you're not, they're going away, and then there's so many blends that happen. What if the person that they're dating has children and there's an event coming up and there's is a time when they're all going to be together and meeting one another? How do you navigate that with your children and they're looking at you and seeing how you're reacting?
Yes.
It's these are the real situations that come up, and you can't know exactly how you're going to deal with them because at that moment in time, where your children are, where you are in yourself, what's happening in all different kinds of ways informs what your actions are, how you respond, and in your heart of hearts, if you're interested in really helping your children navigate this, that getting advice at different points. Oh my gosh, we ask our friends for advice about everything, right? I'm making a chicken tonight, And so these are that not I'm not likening this, but we ask for advice all the time about all sorts of things. And so when it comes for asking for advice, this is a wonderful time where there's no added glory in doing it all by yourself. It is not necessary. It doesn't mean that you're not enough, that you don't know enough, that you don't know your kids well enough. It is not a reflection of your parenting.
Yeah,
It's about, we all need input.
we do. I just told somebody yesterday that, divorce is not a DIY. This divorce that this person was dealing with is not a DIY project. They need help. Otherwise you're going to keep doing things the same way you were doing them before, which is why you're getting divorced, right? That's a whole other story. This
Yes.
is great. I'm so glad we got to talk about this and how, we spoke so much about the kids and how to help them deal with the
Yes.
changes of divorce. I'm really happy we had a chance to do this,
Yeah.
Risa. So as you
I'm gonna
know, oh,
yes.
What was that?
I'm just gonna give up, if you're, and as a parent, I just want to give them a real specific. If you're a parent going through, a time when you're just feel, that you're in internal stress, one of the things that you can do to try to bring it down and reconnect and kind of reset your own thermostat is what I call the 4+4=8 breathing exercise. I promise you, as we're sitting here, there's someone somewhere doing this,
Okay, tell
whether
us what
they're
it is.
going into a board meeting or, walking to get a cup of coffee. I call it Dr. Ryger's 4+4=8. Easy to remember. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out gently for 8.
Okay.
And this is an important component of helping your whole nervous system reset, take it down a notch. And the more you take it down a notch and use what you know about your nervous system. Let's use what we know about our brains to leverage that for our own wellness and to fortify ourselves, to position ourselves in the best possible ways to be as responsive as we can.
That's wonderful. Is that your better divorce tip? Or do you have
It
another better
is
divorce tip?
that is one of my better divorce tips. My other better divorce tip is really going back to what we were saying, and I'll just point these out to you. That one, divorce is the biggest change that can happen, and that the change keeps happening. It's not a one and done. That we are built for change. We're built for change. It doesn't mean that it's easy or comfortable, but we are built for change. And know that that is right in your area of possibility. 3, know that when you don't know, it's okay to not know. And that not knowing is a point of clarity.
Mm,
And when you can be clear with yourself about not knowing, that positions you and you're poised then to take the steps that are needed to help you to know and help you to know in an informed way.
get that. That's when you ask for the help. That's when you reach
Yes,
out. Yes.
yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Risa. I'm so glad you were here. And please, how can people find you? Where are you?
Okay, okay.
Everywhere.
Well,
I know you're everywhere, but tell us.
well, I'm on LinkedIn and I have my website of drrisaryger.com. It's drrisaryger.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on my website, you can find me on Instagram. And these are all I'm on these different platforms so that people can find me. And it's not that it becomes its own difficulty to find me in some way. That people need help, people need support, and that's part of our humanity. And it's not a weakness; it's the strength of who we are.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding all of us of that. So, this has been another episode of a Better Divorce podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe, and this will help others who are seeking a better divorce to find us. So, we'll see you on the next episode. You've been tuning in to another episode of a Better Divorce podcast with Andrea Vacca. Thank you for subscribing, leaving your positive comments and reviews, and sharing the show with others. You can watch episodes at vaccalaw.com, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can listen through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Bye for now, and remember, you can have a better divorce.